everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Voice of Reason. As you can see, Liz is back. So we
Hi,
are
Liz.
talking about America's education system, or lack
Mm.
thereof, I guess. I don't know what to make of
Rapidly
it.
lack thereof.
Right. You guys, if you have kids in the public education system, you're going to want to watch this show because the Trump administration is essentially, they've gutted and dismantled the Department of Education to an extent without congressional approval, which is, Donald Trump's not allowed to unilaterally just take apart entire
Well,
departments.
kings do
But,
what they want. So hey,
right. But this has all been
Oh,
part of Project
thanks.
2025, public education. They do
Mm-hmm.
not want smart people in this country. Smart people are a problem for
educated
fascists.
population is a very big problem for fascists.
It really is.
That's why you wait, ban books.
So when we were down in DC the last time, Mike had brought this to my attention that they plan on basically taking the Department of Education and piecing it out. I have it pulled up here to six different partnerships or agencies they have partnerships with, to include the Department of Labor, Department of Interior, Department of Health and Human Services, and the Department of State.
Right.
Are going to
Why
be
would the
just a
Department
few.
of State have anything to do with education?
Right, Department
Maybe
of
they
Labor.
think because they're like state, the Department of State, that's states' rights, right? State education.
That's how basic MAGA thinks anyway. But Liz is back to talk about what is going on in our education system, things we need to worry about, and of course, how we can fight back. Let's be honest, America's education system, they've been trying to defund it for as long as I can remember. Typically, it
long
seems
time.
like the Republican Party seems to
Mhm.
be hell bent on being the ones to defund education in America.
Well,
We've
they are
talked about
for
how they want
indoctrination, not
they want to
education.
privatize education, they want to segregate. We called this a long time ago, and everybody's like, "Nah, that's crazy."
Uh-huh.
What
Yeah,
they
what
want
they
is
want.
instead of experts providing curriculum, they want corporations with ties to right wing donors to create curriculum. Instead of
Yeah.
having an educated workforce, they want an indoctrinated workforce that's
Right.
happy
Mm-hmm.
and dumb and just wants to toil away to make the billionaires richer. They don't
Mm-hmm.
want an educated population, hands
And
down.
Liz brought this to our attention the last time, but the former founder, I'm probably sure she's still involved with Moms for Liberty at some
Oh,
capacity, but she actually works for the Heritage Foundation now.
mm-hmm.
And we've
Yay.
always said on this show that Moms for Liberty was the branch of Project 2025 that was created and designated to target children and
Mm-hmm.
education and get parents hating their own school.
Yep. And
That
now
shit's
Tiffany's
crazy.
been quoted stating it. She stated
Yep.
it publicly that she wants no child in a public school.
Yep.
That's crazy.
So if people don't understand, those of you that have kids in public school, you're gaining a lot of things by having them enrolled in that school. You're not just gaining the social aspects of it, you're gaining the benefit of a broad curriculum that is
Mhm.
supposed to be verified and designed by experts in the field, by educators, by professional educators, not people that just think they get a couple of workbooks and they could teach their kids whatever stuff teachers do. It can't be that hard, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's what's going on.
Yeah. But now we have what? PragerU and Turning Point USA trying to
Ugh.
infest our schools.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to actually several people. I believe the one lady I met in DC was actually from Florida, and she did say that they are using PragerU in
Yeah,
some
I
of the
remember
schools
that.
she knew of.
It's one of
Um,
the quote unquote authorized
Yeah.
curriculum pieces that teachers are allowed to use. I would hope that most are shying away from it. But like anything else, I believe in teacher empowerment. So if a teacher goes through something on PragerU and it is appropriate, sure, go ahead and use it.
mhm.
But the problem is that it's being touted as a replacement for PBS. And
Ugh.
that's
Right. Wow. Yeah. And
Mhm.
for those of you guys that don't remember, PragerU is the one that posts cartoons for children of Christopher Columbus saying slavery wasn't that bad. It was
Mhm.
just what we did back then. Like,
Oh,
what the
shucks.
fuck?
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, look, we know the whole point of a public education system is to make sure that we create mindful citizens that are aware of history, aware of how to apply reason and logic, and learn from history to make a better future. If that's not what your public education system is doing, then it shouldn't be in the public education system. That's what its job is, and anything else is and should be left to the parents. But we have a contingent of people in this country, namely the Republican Party, the Christian nationalists, Moms for Liberty, who want to obliterate that general knowledge and make it very targeted, very specific, and very skewed towards one particular set of beliefs. And that's one of the reasons we're seeing, with the topic of today's show, we're seeing teaching vacancies for different reasons. We're seeing teachers leaving positions. We're seeing lack of new teachers coming up the ranks. And it's because the public education system in this country has become polluted by manufactured scandal. Okay. None of the problems that the right says are happening in the schools are happening even to a percent of a degree that they could stretch the truth. They're all just manufactured lies.
Right.
Yep.
And they focus on all the culture war bullshit too. Like you know what I mean? Oh, they're trying to make your kids trans by making them read a book with a trans character. It's like, really? I mean, because that's what Moms for Liberty was doing. They're going through banning books that have like 2 gay cartoon characters because they're afraid their kids are going to read a book with a gay character and all of a sudden turn gay. It's not how it works, but it's
still
silly.
I have a viewer on Instagram who said they are 26-year special educator, and I'm terrified for our kids as well as myself.
I mean, I honestly am glad
Scary,
the kids
isn't
are
it?
out of the education system at this point, because it is going to be an uphill battle for a lot of parents. Any parent that has an IEP, Jesus Christ, good luck with that. Good luck with that.
Well, we
that's-
have some data. We have some
Right.
data later. We'll show what that's about,
Yeah,
because
that really worries me when they're talking about getting rid of Department of Education and its purpose, because the one thing that it has done right is to make sure that IEPs are followed.
Right.
And that's, of course, not a perfect system, as we all know, and it does need improvement. But if you're going to do away with the people who fundamentally made sure that kids had their rights, just like the, what do you call it? The, I don't know. I lost the train of thought there. But
I know you're good.
when you don't have the federal level folks that are overseeing things, then who's going to be doing that work? And that's kind of the general theme to what's happening.
I think it goes to the overall theme of this administration, which is we want a certain type of person to be considered a good standard citizen. And we're going to have several types of people that don't meet that qualification. One of them is going to be anyone that needs any, quote, special education, anyone that needs any individualized attention. Because somehow that's going to take away from society, even though the idea that, quote, no child left behind and we're all little clones of each other has been proven completely wrong. And in every other country that has good education systems, there is the general component, and then there is a unique component based on students' individualities, because not everyone's the same. Sometimes some people need a little push or a little help or a little tug in different areas. But instead of working towards a better equitable society, we're using now the Department of Education to strand a segment of the population from that education and that assistance that they deserve.
Looks like somebody in the comments said they called Tennessee.
Did they?
And yeah, but
I think there's only 50 some odd % in. I don't know.
I don't know. What, regardless, though, I mean, I just for the, I don't want to.
It was pretty close.
I mean, for Tennessee, we're talking about here.
Yeah.
They almost lost in Tennessee, so that should give you a huge indication of what's going to happen in the midterms. Assuming
let me tell you,
26%.
They're in a point right now where the administration is doing nothing with controlling every single branch of government. If they are at the point where they were worrying about a race in Tennessee to see who maintained power in the House, that does not bode well for the abilities of the leaders in the Republican Party.
They've lost the plot. They've completely lost support.
They've lost the book because they burnt it and they were like, "Oh shit, we needed that book."
We've known for a long time, but we mostly know now for sure that most of the MAGA rage online is manufactured, because most of the online support, which is where most of this administration support lives, aren't even real people. Like
Mhm.
most of the time, when you're in the comment arguing with a MAGA, there is a very high chance that that is just some kind of bot from India or Russia or Israel or somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, the reality is though that this administration has completely lost all of its support. You got the core base, yeah, that'll always
which
exist,
is
but
shrinking.
which is shrinking by
Yeah, but the
by the
damage,
day.
but the problem is the damage is done. That
It
base is
is. It
slowly
is.
rejecting him, but now we're seeing a Department of Education being eviscerated right before our
Right. And
eyes.
how do we? They're going to do. It's going to take decades to put back the pieces of what these people have done in just a few short months. Uh,
Jeremy, I've heard that so much, but I don't understand that statement. If
I
they
don't.
can
It just feels
destroy
like
something very quickly, I think we can fix it very quickly also.
I hope so. I hope so. I just see how our politicians work, and it just seems like they can't agree on a goddamn thing anymore. So yeah, maybe
Yeah.
you're right.
Well,
Maybe.
things need to flip, that's for sure, so that we can start getting, a little bit
But I guess at the same
reason.
time, I will add that like a lot of our systems are broken, and I feel like they
Mhm.
are unfixable, especially capitalism.
Mm.
Maybe some of these systems need to be torn down in order to be built back up stronger. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe,
Yeah, I'd have to
maybe.
argue that point because you don't tear down a system without some kind of replacement
Fair.
set
True.
up. You
Maybe
it,
we
it,
need a
look
shakeup
at
of the
Yeah.
look
system.
at rid
All
of the DOE.
right.
I'm the first one to complain about the DOE. It's like,
Mhm.
regulation up the wazoo, it
Oh,
seems.
sure.
But you don't totally throw out a system without a plan. And to me, I mean, reading through the
Yeah.
DOE website, not much of
Welcome, Dark Sunray.
It's not. Yeah, it's not very inspiring. I will admit that. I read
Mhm.
some of the stuff on there
Well, it
today.
doesn't really make sense in a lot of cases. So,
No. Oh, but all right. So what I wanted to say before we talked about the election, though, is I think we pointed out several times on the show, and we like to make a point of it. But the Department of Education does not determine curriculum. That I believe is the state's job, right?
yes,
Okay.
yeah,
So there you go.
and
States' rights.
and
There you
even
go.
or district level, they determine curriculum, which is the stuff that you teach,
Hmm.
based on what the state has developed by way of state level standards.
Right.
So that's kind of what controls what's happening in schools.
Hmm.
And that thread of bringing the decisions back to the states is woven throughout all of their announcements and all of the stuff on the DOE website.
Hmm.
I don't see that connection. I don't
Yes.
see where anything is going back to the states. It's being shifted to a different department
No,
or
it's
level.
funny. That's a good point because the party of states' rights has become the party of total and complete government control, and and no one's saying anything about it. They just start letting it happen.
Yeah,
Well,
there's
they have
actually
no
a
choice. They're too in. They're too far in. That's why they're all resigning.
Yeah, there's literally a quote right here from Linda McMahon. It says the Trump administration is taking bold action to break up the federal education bureaucracy and return education to the states.
And if that were true, that would be great. But I don't see it being returned to the states. I'm
No, it's still
seeing
within federal
it's
agencies.
still a federal agency, and they've distributed the tasks, which means to me, because they're already eliminating people too, that
Hmm.
They're
you're going
overloading other agencies.
Yes, exactly. So now labor is our Department of Labor is going to be doing
Short-staffed with more something.
with more tasks to do.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of bureaucracy, absolutely, just like in anything else. Social Security has bureaucracy, but you don't throw it out without a plan of how to fix something.
Wait, isn't
That's
there a
the way I
phrase,
look
an
at
old adage? You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
it. Exactly.
That's
There's
a
a
good,
lot of
yeah.
babies being thrown out lately, and it's not good.
Oh, that's on the nose.
Not at all.
Mhm.
We also know they want to basically teach a whitewashed Christian nationalist version of history. Basically propagandize the. Well, I mean, the
Mhm.
only way a fascist dictatorship stays in power for a very, very long time is they have to have the youth on board. You can't have the next generation
That's what
revolt.
Hitler Youth was. They were trying to create the next permanent generation.
Right. So you
That's
need.
Turning Point and the Charlie Kirk stuff.
That's exactly
Boom.
right. That's exactly
If
right.
you have the children, you have everything. And isn't it fascinating that this is the party that is obsessed with children On every front. They're obsessed with children sexually. They're obsessed with children by what's between their legs from a gender perspective. They're obsessed with children by making sure they indoctrinate their minds. They're obsessed with children because they need to make sure they have a pure race and a lineage. It's disgusting. I've never
They don't want anybody
understood.
impacting their children.
Yeah, they want to bud little creatures that are just little drones and just send them off into drone world. Just okay, and then you create more. It's creepy.
It is. It is
I
very
like how they talk in here about childcare access for people in college, yet they
right.
want to make it freaking impossible for people to afford college. And that's honestly been one of the problems in this country is the access, I guess, financial access to secondary or higher education.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people would pursue education further
Yeah,
and continue to learn had they had the opportunities and resources available to them.
and there's a few things going on related to that, right? There's the I don't know, over $1 trillion in student loans that they're
Mhm.
talking about. Well, we'll shift that into the Treasury Department. The Treasury Department is not into giving away money.
Or they're not
So
a bank.
how are they going to be the ones that facilitate a real user-friendly option for people to apply for grants and so forth and
Mhm.
tuition? So, like I said, a lot of it does not make sense. And it's like you said, the Labor Department, Interior. The Interior Department, they're talking about moving Native American education as an entity. I guess they're calling it an entity
Because we know
into
they'll
the
prioritize that.
Department of the Interior Department. And I'm kind of like, well, is
Yeah, it
that
was,
not further segregating Native Americans? Saying,
yeah.
well, they're not really part of the whole education picture. We're
They're
going to
their
put them
own
here, but we have to
education.
take care of them anyway in the Department of Interior.
Here, I have another quote.
I don't know.
Yeah, they'll. You
I
know
have-
what? The Department of Interior will be in charge of handing out blankets.
The nice thing is they put quotes from all of Donald Trump's administration in here. So what he's
Yeah.
they actually call it the Indian Education Partnership, not the
Right.
Native American Education Partnership.
Well, you know what they're
Jesus
going to do with that?
Christ.
They're going to make sure that the real history of this country isn't known, and what they're going to do is post pictures of pilgrims and people with feathers in their hair
Dude,
and
that's the
having a
crazy
nice
part.
turkey dinner, and they're going to say, "That's it. That's all there was. Don't
Bro,
worry
that's
about
crazy
it."
though. Like that's already what we think it is. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And it's just going to get worse. But here under this is from Secretary of the Interior, Doug
Mhm.
Burgum, who I guess is the one who will be in charge of all of this.
Mhm.
Under President Donald Trump, Native American education programs will become stronger, more accountable, and fully dedicated to ensuring Native students are prepared for success. Are you kidding
So,
me?
but we're going to do that by make sure they're not part of the Department of Education.
That's what it's sounding like, and it's sounding like Indian schools. to me.
Yes, it is Indian schools.
Right.
Which
Holy
I mean,
shit,
segregation.
Liz.
Yeah.
Oh my
that's
god.
crazy.
We're gonna have
Again, segregation. We're going back to a segregated education system, if not a segregated society, if we keep this up. Which is horrifying to even think of. But no, that's kind of where we're at right now.
Mhm.
And we've all, I mean, I don't know if you guys have heard the tapes of Donald Trump. He was it had something to do with a casino. And I don't remember, I'm not even going to get into the story, but Donald Trump has said some pretty disparaging things about Native
Yes.
Americans in the past. So I highly doubt that he's very empathetic
Yeah, he's making sure
towards
that they're
their
gonna be
future.
good.
I highly doubt Donald Trump has a shred of empathy in his entire body. James and I watched a video yesterday of when he was the one who announced that National Guard's member was killed,
Mhm.
and he was just like, "She's dead." Like he had no empathy whatsoever. So I find it hard to believe that Donald Trump gives a
Well,
shit.
remember
about
the
anybody.
film where the person passed out in his office? He glanced at
He
his
looked annoyed.
Just
He
stared
looked
at him.
annoyed. Like, how dare you pass out in my presence?
Liz, before we get on to the actual some of the meat of this, a new viewer has a question I wanted to see if we tackle. So,
Yeah,
question:
I saw that scroll up. Mhm.
what do you think homeschooling will look like? Will it still be acceptable schooling? What's our option if they abolish it? I'm planning on homeschooling till we find the right place.
That's a good question.
My initial response, Liz, is that they're going to push homeschooling as a way to have subterfuge around any public education remaining. That's my opinion, but I'd rather hear your opinion.
Well, I think this is actually a brilliant question because nobody seems to know the answer on this one. Homeschooling is part of what we do across this country. And in some cases, it's done very well. In some cases, it's done very poorly. There has not been a whole lot of accountability placed with that, the whole movement as a way to educate children. Now, each state is responsible to make sure that the children or students in that state get an education. And so you'll see things across the nation where, there's a very strong homeschooling component that's part of the state, and it's, very accountable for what it does. And, they really put in some measurements and so forth. I'm not sure what they're going to do. I do know that what their goal is to get rid of or segregate out and have a two-tiered system of education. And it will be the more elite class as opposed to the rest of us who will just get whatever is left, because I think that's why they think they can push back and say, oh no, we're not going to get rid of public schools, but they're choking them to death.
Yeah.
And those public schools will really fall out to be maybe low socioeconomic areas in public school, whereas other areas might not have to have that option.
I think you're going to see public schools be relegated to poor urban areas, and you're going to see a lot of middle class and higher people going to a homeschooling thing that's regulated by a PragerU Turning Point USA curriculum that's approved by the Department of Education.
Yeah, and that's probably the most likely scenario, is that they're going to have it go through PragerU. Right now, they are trying to do teacher certification through PragerU, which is an absolute disaster.
That's an abomination.
It is. And so, the idea, I guess it's from mostly the Republican side, but there are some on the Democratic side that believe in this image of choice as well. Public schooling should be the only choice. And it should be where we dump enough resources. And I'm not talking about money, because resources are a lot bigger picture than money.
And we're going to get to that.
Yes, we are. But it needs to be the revered way of educating a society. And it's been chipped away. You said earlier it's been quite a bit. So I'd say we're going on about 30 years or so where this orchestrated attempt, maybe a little bit more than 30. And it started with, them doing testing of kids and saying, oh my gosh, these scores are lower than what we thought they should be, right, on reading and math. And so what did they do? They got rid of things like civics. And look at some of the yahoos we have in society right now.
Oh my God.
They haven't taught some of the things that most of us had when we were growing up, how to be a productive citizen.
Like, how do you not teach? What's the point of public education if it's not to create a good
that
citizen?
Should be what drives it, right? Citizenship, social studies should be what drives all of education.
Well, the irony, they make such a big deal about who is and isn't a citizen, but they're not holding any value to being a citizen. If the value of being a citizen of a country has to come first from its healthcare and second from its education, because there are people that are going to need healthcare regardless of their education status. So healthcare comes first, but public education should be so robust, so compulsory that it alone fulfills every need of your job market.
And I think, it's very clear, if you've been watching this as for decades, like I have, that the powerful people in this country have realized that it is a moneymaker. It truly is.
Anything that can be will be.
90 some odd % of children across the United States in a public school setting. And so you have the bulk of, I'll call them consumers, right? The children and the parents are in the public school system. So they weren't allowed to control the public system because it was public. And so that's why this whole defamation of public schooling started up. It started up with test scores. And, oh my gosh, we're ahead or we're behind other countries, so we need to do something. But what they should have done was dug into citizenship and social studies
Right.
and not done this false premise of let's come up with a new reading program. Let's come up with different ways to teach math. In my career, there's probably been 5 or 6 different paths for mathematics. First it's Singapore, then it's, New York. And I mean, we know basic math. Just teach
Right.
basic math.
Right.
Yep.
And a lot of time and money has been invested in education, but it hasn't funneled into productivity in the classroom.
Right.
It's funneled into textbook companies. It's
Yep.
funneled into
Administration.
it's funneled into administration. There's so many ways that it's not rocket science to fix public schools.
No,
but
it's a choice.
Let them be thrown out
It's a
because
choice to not.
somebody wants to pour all the resources into this other avenue of, having choice.
Yep.
And the day that it is a logical choice for every student in America, then I will support choice. But until then, it's not choice. It's discrimination.
Yep.
Right.
Well, that was oof. Yeah. All right, let's get to the topic today.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the topic is essentially, like I mentioned briefly earlier, the growing vacancies we have in the school system. When we started prepping for this, some of the information I found, Liz referred to it as shortages, and you corrected me to refer to them as vacancies. So I want to read some of the information first, and I want you to explain what the difference is and why you feel strongly about that.
Okay.
So the U.S. is facing over 50,000 teaching vacancies by some estimates. We do not have a teacher shortage, in quotes. Teachers are leaving due to low pay, loss of autonomy, increased discipline issues, and poor working conditions. Reasons for vacancies fall into a couple of categories. Teacher attrition. High turnover is the primary driver, with around 90% of vacancies resulting from teachers leaving the profession. Working conditions, low salaries, inadequate support, difficult working environments, and adversarial parents fighting manufactured culture wars. If we haven't talked about that enough, I don't know what we have talked about. Burnout and safety concerns. Post-pandemic burnout is real. Concerns about school safety, do we really need to elaborate? And political issues have further exacerbated the problem. Lack of preparation, and I think where this is the most dangerous part of this, because we're not giving teachers what they need to succeed. Teachers without full preparation are more likely to leave the profession, and many vacancies are filled by teachers who are not sufficiently trained. So, Liz, why are they vacancies and not shortages?
They're vacancies because you're talking about positions. The people are available to fill those positions. They're choosing not to go into the teaching field. They're choosing not to apply for those positions. My son has had a few teachers through the years that have left for higher paying jobs. Well, who can blame them?
No,
but it's not just about that. It's always been, and hopefully will change, but it's always been a lower pay scale for teachers, right? But because we had such joy, such autonomy in the classroom, it made it worth it for us.
You felt like you were doing something that was rewarding.
Something. So now what we've seen in the past, well, strongly for the last 10 years, is that teachers' hands are being tied. Teachers are not only being attacked publicly, but being attacked professionally, being told that, they are not worthy and that they're not doing enough, when I'm here to tell you, I've never known a teacher that didn't work 365 days of the year. All this baloney about summers off, I'm retired and I still don't have my summers off. But you know what I mean? And so that was all kind of tolerated because when we closed our classroom door and we were with the children, we could make an impact. We could teach those children. We could focus on the curriculum that had been developed with good thought and good materials.
And good intention.
And we could be professionals. And what's under attack right now is the professionalism within the field of education. You've seen that now with the federal push on from the Trump administration to get rid of some of the professional status of certain degrees. Well, that's a money grab right there, right? They're not wanting to shell out as much money for people to further their education. But I mean, I have a master's degree. What does it mean anymore? I don't know, because they're just. It made me a better teacher. I can tell you that, and I was able to use the skills that I got by furthering my education. But that's not what the bottom line here is. It's that they just want whoever will be easy to control in the classrooms directing the children that will be easy to control. But I can also tell you, in my career, some of our best teaching moments were when the children totally disagreed with me and we learned together on something.
Oh, that's possible.
That's really lost because the powers that be seem to have this idea of what we're supposed to be doing. But if we don't have student-centered schools and classrooms, we are missing the mark. You might as well be in some third world country where you're just barely getting by to educate any of the kids.
Well,
some of them allow girls to go to school.
Yeah, right.
Well, to get a better picture, you said some other countries. Well, how widespread is it in our country? So here you go. Over 3/4 of states still facing shortages, but really vacancies. So all the red are states that report. For sake of argument, I'm just going to stick with shortages due to the graphic, but that all of those states.
Sure, this is from what, ABC News. This was 22-23, right?
Yes, and it's probably worse now.
Yeah, I mean, to not have Florida having.
Well, it's funny you say that. I was just going to say the first thing I notice is that it does not follow any party line. Because you look at New York and California and they have shortages and they have the most people and they're the most blue states. So, but then now that, what was the original graphic? Not indicating shortages in Florida? Bullshit. So as of now, we know there's shortages.
And I'll also draw your attention to the source is from state education departments. That's self-reporting. And
which is why there's one, Louisiana.
I was going to say Louisiana does not believe they have a teacher shortage. Well,
to be fair, Louisiana probably doesn't know how to do the math to count that they have a teacher shortage.
I was going to say not exactly known for their high numbers.
But it's not just, let me rephrase that. We can look at the impact of this not just by which states are reporting shortages, by which states are reporting which kind of education, which subjects are seeing the biggest problems. And one thing you noticed early when we looked at this before the show, Liz, was that special education is not looking very supported. Special education in English, so which means people can't read. I'm sorry, English is a second language. So the irony there is they want people to come here and speak English, but they're not going to support the teaching of English to people.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and if you look at the blue states, I would actually suppose that most of the states should be all under that blue category. But those
special ed and
because all is math, special ed, and ESL, which is
so it's everything.
The others, and I don't know the date on this graphic, but
I couldn't find it. It was recent, but I didn't remember where.
But I like the way that they've spelled it out on that to look at. Okay, folks, this means you. If you have, speaking of another language, if you have a student that has special needs, and if you have children that you want to learn math, I mean, which means all of us, then those things are impactful.
So how do we deal with some of these issues? And I'm going to get back to some of them right now. One of them is obviously, let's not be pedantic about this. We care about how much we get paid to do a job in this country, obviously. Teachers, see a bit of a pay gap, don't they, Liz? You want to talk about this?
Yeah, and again, this is 2023, so it might be even wider.
Yep.
But if you look at other professions are in the kind of peachy orangey color.
Yep.
And if you look at teachers, there was a bit of a bump in 2010, and it looks like it's going high, but the gap is still there. So it's not like there's some kind of big, they like to say things like, "Oh, we just gave teachers a $2,000 raise." Well, that's fine, but the rest of society just got a $4,000 raise. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So it has to be relative to other professions, and that's what I'm supposing is that they're saying, or that I'm proposing. They're saying that, okay, well, we just won't make it a profession anymore,
Yeah.
and of great concern to someone that did a lot of schooling. And
So they want to be able to teach more, or they say they do. They want to be able to teach kids math skills, English skills. They want to make sure kids are coming to this country, they're learning the language. They want to, well, we know they're not going to pretend they even care about special education, but then they're defunding the whole thing. They're pretending it's going back to the states. They're lying about that.
Yeah.
At some point, we have to stop listening to the chaos above us and look what's broken from the perspective of the teachers. So one of the things that I've always known, because I've always had teachers in my family, so I knew this. I have friends that are teachers and relatives, so I know a staggering 94% of teachers spend their own money on basic classroom supplies.
Yep.
We're talking basics.
Like, think about that. So
You had
you're going to school and the teachers aren't going to the closet that's stocked by the education department and your school taxes and taking out pencils and giving them to the kids.
Right.
More likely, those pencils are coming out of their book bag that they brought to school with them that they purchased on Amazon.
Yeah, I saw a dramatic decline in the amount of things that were being provided every year. And, I was always given the excuse, well, budget cuts, blah, 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 blah. But
Why?
it's gone steadily downhill. So not only have the salaries not risen, but the amount of money that teachers are spending. And like I said, we're talking about basic supplies like pencils and crayons and glue, not expensive technology or anything that we want to incorporate in our room. We're talking about basics. Someone said to me the other day, "Can you imagine if a surgeon had to provide all their own features and
Right, scalpels and shit, and bring it with
scalpels
them,
and
yeah.
all of
At
that?"
least they could afford it.
That'd be
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, yeah, they could,
but
but
no, but that's not the point. The point is you go into a job. All right. So, okay, here's an example from my line of work, which is fairly common. I'm in manufacturing. So, you go to work. Are you expected to bring all of your own tools, your own screwdrivers, your own wire cutters? No. If you
Nope.
need it, you go to your boss puts in a rec, and a couple of days later, you have a nice, shiny new screwdriver. Like,
Yeah.
it's not that complicated. You're supposed to be provided with the tools of your trade. Otherwise, where's that money going?
Yeah.
And I guess that goes to a fundamental aspect of respect, which teachers feel disrespected more than any other industry. 42% of teachers say they do not feel respected by the public. And if you ask in general what challenges are faced by teachers, you see again, lack of respect is 40% of this. Safety concerns, unmanageable workload, desire for influence, dwindling satisfaction. So teachers are less satisfied with the work they do. They're angry about being disrespected. They're not given support, whether it's continued education, whether it's up-to-date textbooks, whether it's basic school supplies. They can't even feel safe in the schools because no one's doing anything to stop school shootings. What is the benefit of being a teacher, Liz? If you're being honest, right now in 2025 America, would you advise anyone to go into teaching right now?
I hate that question so much, Mike.
I know.
That's tough.
My answer has to be no right now.
And I know that kills you.
First time. I mean, I used to have intern teachers, 4 and 5 of them at a time. I worked at a professional development school. So the passion for teaching that I saw in young people was remarkable. And I don't know how they could be looking at current news, almost daily news, with attacks on teachers, underfunding of the schools, attacking things like CRT, and just all of the stuff that has been out there. And right now, it's a very difficult time. I am hoping that our efforts, you guys spreading information, we're spreading information throughout our network. I'm hoping that things will swing back and it will get at least back to how it was in like the 80s, because being a teacher was pretty darn cool in the 80s. And it was like we were so professional, and we were always searching for new and different ways to approach students and to get points across. Somebody had written about Michigan. I did a lot of my teaching in Michigan, and I taught in a co-teaching model with special education teacher. It breaks my heart when she wrote that XEd is not doing well in Michigan, because it was like a model to follow. When I moved to Florida from Michigan,
Oh, really?
was like, whoa, why aren't we doing what Michigan's doing? But of course,
wow.
no one in Florida listened to me. But
Well, Florida has a problem listening to anyone.
and the problem was that Michigan had a Betsy DeVos attack, and it really raised its ugly head there of this segregation of society. And when you do that, you're talking about moving resources away from public schools. That's the bottom line. And it's sad that, I have to say, I would ask people to think twice right now, or to get a teaching degree and try doing maybe something else for a little while we shake
Give
this
it
stuff
time.
out. I've never seen it this bad. So
man, it's hard to imagine someone who's done something so long almost not steering someone away from it, but imploring that they take caution when considering. And I can understand why that's so hard, especially because it's funny, I've always had a weird relationship with school. I have never been a good student, but yet I've always had a love and a respect for education and knowledge. So I've always, despite my own shortcomings, I never held it against teachers. I always knew that they were my shortcomings and that teachers were not a target. They were just leave the teacher alone. They have enough to worry about. Mm-hmm. So I can understand how much that bothers you. But the reason I brought that up is because it's not just right now, today in 2025, watching the destruction of the Department of Education, where we're running out of teachers moving forward. This is a trend we've seen for a while now, because teachers have been under attack for so long. This is, like I think Jeremy said, a concerted effort for decades to just destroy public education. Who wants to be a teacher in America? So thank you. Over the past decade, interest in teaching has dropped by roughly 20%, even as applications to nursing, a career path that attracts similar students, have climbed. At a time when schools face growing shortages and urgently need a more diverse workforce, this trend is setting off alarm bells for policymakers and education leaders, obviously not the Department of Education. And you look right here, this is a current set of data. This was from September 2025. And you could see here, I guess the same dedicated group of humans want to be school counselors and social workers, but you look at teacher and okay, we're only talking about a percentage here, but it's a trend over a long period where being a teacher was considered a prestigious job. It was something, you said you were going to be a teacher. Your parents were the happiest thing in the world. You were proud to say, I'm going to educate. I'm going to get kids to achieve things that they never thought possible. Nursing, it's a great career path, but now, we talked about this before the show and we were touching about it here.
That's crazy.
If those aren't considered professional degrees anymore, yes, nursing's
going to take a hit too.
That's insane.
What education is there anymore when all of the professional degrees are no longer professional degrees? And the number one degree that should be a teacher is becoming the least popular thing to ever be in this country.
Well, it's very similar to my thinking on politics as a whole. You always go after the lowest hanging fruit. So in professions, we've probably been in the professional world, the lowest hanging fruit. So we've always been under attack. Just like in politics, the lowest hanging fruit are your school board elections. No one paid
Yeah.
attention to those. And
And we know
candidates
now what that means.
$1,000 or a couple $1,000s to get these positions.
Now you need
Now
Moms for Liberty money.
they're dumping thousands and thousands and thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars into a school board position.
That's insanity.
That
It
tells you
is.
something.
It is
But
insanity.
it goes to show you the if that much money is going into it, how much they're willing to fight to take over and to
Yeah.
destroy it. What we're going to have to do to push back.
Yeah.
We have to take it just as seriously. And I think all the losses from Moms for Liberty that we've been seeing over the past couple of years shows that the takeover down at the school board level might not go as smoothly as they predicted.
Yeah, we're pushing back, and we have been since really late in 22. After those 22 fall elections, that really kind of slapped us across the face with, yeah, this is their plan. They're going to take over school boards and then go. And where I live, they did take over school boards. So, I have the personal experience.
Yeah,
of
you do.
what's going on with that.
Dark Sunray has a good follow-up question. I think Brina brought it to my attention. Someone did, Pamela, actually. Question follow-up. Is there a way to set up a school curriculum that can't be manipulated by the administration but still isn't doing anything wrong? With how much freedom is there left in teaching?
There will always be freedom. When you close your classroom door, you still have that piece of freedom. But you have to be a little bit more creative now. If you're being measured, you need to find ways to get around that as a tool. And I mean, teachers will always be alone with students. And I don't mean that as a control thing. I'm saying that unless
power
from the administration is standing over your shoulder, you are the power player in that classroom. And that would be the message that I would give anyone that is following through and going into education. They need to be strong, and they need to always be the advocates for those kids in that classroom. And the communities need to become advocates for the teachers and the teachers' teaching environment, because that is the students' learning environment. You can't separate the two. You can't mistreat teachers and think that students are going to be just fine in that process. Students are not stupid.
No,
They know when their parents are, really denigrating the school or, oh, that teacher of yours, blah, blah, blah. And, there's always been a vehicle for, if you do have a bad experience, go and be involved in the school. Go and meet with the teacher. If they're not responsive, meet with the principal. But instead, it's this, we're going to go to the school board meetings and we're going to throw your name out.
Well, that's the it's really funny. They complain that they don't have control, which they have always had.
Yes,
they don't want to exercise it by just picking up the phone and calling. Oh my God, I'm old. Look, I picked up the phone. By picking up the phone and calling the teacher, but they'll wait to go to the school board meeting to rant and rave like a lunatic, when they could have just acted like an adult, an educated adult, and picked up a phone and spoken to the teacher, asked a question. If I'm speaking for teachers right now, as much as I know no teacher wants 1,000 parents calling them every day, they probably wouldn't mind parents calling with legitimate questions and
instead
concerns,
of going to social
instead
media,
of going to school boards or social media. I mean,
or trying to get them fired or doxing them, or
then to say, so and so at such and such a school has this in the book that they're using.
Right.
I mean, really, is that really how you're going to address a problem?
Yeah.
You're going to go and see how many likes you can get to your,
I know that drives me nuts when people take all this stuff to social media instead of just addressing the actual problem. But I think that's what the hopes of us, like doing shows that focus on education, is to try and almost re-educate the parents on what is really happening, and like the fact that you should pay attention.
You know what happened?
Because I'll be the first to admit, like, maybe I should have paid more attention to my kids' educations. I wasn't very involved in like the behind the scenes school stuff. I went to my parent teacher meetings and that was about it. You know what I mean? So But
Well,
maybe
because
looking
that's what
back,
you're taught to do. Think
right,
about it
right.
that way. We, like you said, we have to educate parents on what it means to be a parent of a student.
Hmm. Right, and
And
they,
that's where Moms for Liberty has fallen down on the
yeah,
job.
That's what they were trying to do to
They said,
indoctrinate parents.
well, and they said, we are here to support parents. We are here to
They
equip
never let it.
parents to fight for their rights at every level of government. That's something in their mission statement, right? But what they haven't done was teach parents about the rights that they already had and how to exercise those rights. So imagine what they could have done. That's like my talking point of Moms for Liberty. They have this awesome structure that they've set up. They've got awesome communication people.
Funding.
Well, they
mhm.
do have funding. Imagine what they could have done.
Oh, it could have
And
done
they
amazing things.
didn't go down that path. So,
Yeah,
a couple of people wanted to talk to me. So, I'm putting my email address in the chat if they
Cool.
want to.
yep. Also, don't
It,
forget,
it won't post. That's weird.
probably because it's a email.
Because it's an email.
I think it's the
y-
website or email addresses you can't post in the chat. But anyway,
Oh,
well, I have your Stop Mothers for Liberty. If you guys want the information for that, the link is in my the link is in the
mhm.
on our
It's a
channel
very,
page. Jesus Christ, I
very
had a brain fart.
easy email address. It's just Stop Moms for Liberty, all lowercase letters. The word for is spelled out at gmail.com. So,
Yep. Or you can go to stopmomsforliberty.com and get more information there as well.
Yeah, I have their website scrolling up right now.
mhm.
It's also on our link tree, I believe.
You
as
know,
well.
that's funny, Liz. Like, maybe that's the next phase of everything of what we have to do on the education front is we have to find a way to really educate parents. Like, is something as silly as we need to like link up with a production company and be like, let's make videos on what it means to be a parent with a student. Like, I
Well,
know it sounds dumb,
you
but if you did that with social media, you could get kind of clever with that.
You
Mhm.
could, and there's probably a market for that actually. But I would suggest because we're in this really emergency situation, I'll just touch on it briefly. But in Florida, we have something called Schools of Hope, and Schools of Hope was prompted by the governor and his wife. The ones that absconded with some money somewhere.
Yeah, well,
But
who's
Schools of Hope has been given the authority to go into schools that have any space in them because of lower enrollment and take over sections of those buildings to run a charter school in. And that is coming down the pike, folks, across the country. We're the laboratory, like I always have said. That's something they're going to look at. If this goes through in Florida, so far we're kind of pushing back on it. And there's a lot of people that are now informed about this Schools of Hope initiative. But that is a bad idea to have a charter school, an outside entity, come into a public school setting. The
Yeah.
public school and our tax money would pay for them to function under that roof.
No.
Electrical, food service, all of that is
So they don't have any cost of business.
No, they're just allowed to come in and use the property. And
How does that benefit anyone?
No,
it benefits
Well, it benefits them,
charter
yeah. But I mean,
operators are.
oh my
They don't have to
God.
get their own facility. So we're fighting like heck in Florida.
You know what that is? That's zombie education. That's going into a corpse that you murdered and taken over the body.
And the whole concept of we pay taxes, so we own those schools. I mean, fundamentally, that's what taxes mean. You own
That is what they
public
should mean.
things. So you're paying your taxes in to have some outside company come in and take over property.
That's insanity.
Yeah, please do tell everybody about that, because if you look up Schools of Hope in Florida, we're calling them Schools of Nope. We got a different name for
Yeah,
it.
I mean,
It's really because we've got people like Donalds who is going to run for governor in Florida after DeSantis, which would be a nightmare for us because his wife is so deep in this charter school movement that that's where Florida is pushing this. So, I mean, this is something that, again, they're trying it in Florida to see if it will float. And, thank goodness they are starting to listen across the state with, this is a really bad idea, folks. We're talking transportation for those students to get to the charter school. is going to come out of our tax money. So it's so fundamentally
More for
flawed.
the rich. Great.
I think they just figured, well, no one's going to pay attention and we're just going to get away with this.
I think they keep saying that until eventually we're just not going to have any more money for them. They feel like you're just bleeding us dry at this point.
Well, that's how you kill something without slitting its throat. You starve it to death.
Yeah.
So, I know you're always asking, okay, so what do we do? So I would be remiss if I didn't say the major plan right now is to look at your school boards. Across the country, we will have elections in 2026. We've had a few in 2025. Moms for Liberty did not do very well, which is great. They've been steadily declining in the number of positions that they are seating. 2026 will come on, the backs of some of the, I'll call them Democratic wins across the country, where people are just fed up with things that are in place right now and they want change. So please, all of your viewers, your listeners, pay attention to your school board elections, because that's where this fascism has come to play. It's still more manageable at school board level than it is in other places. A city commission or city council position is a little bit harder to run for than a school board position. And luckily, we're trying to alert people to this across the nation. They are doing things like coming up with candidates, alternative candidates. I'm working on slates of pro-public school candidates. I would recommend that also to your listeners. Get those folks together that are dedicated to making sure that your school district is going to survive all of this, that are truly going to show their loyalty to the public school system. Have them run as a ticket. Then you can share resources. You can share events. It's just a no-brainer that it's a good thing to do.
Maybe it's funny because this all goes back to something that you said that has always bugged me. We need civics in this country. We need people to know that you can run for your school board. You could run for small local office, and more people need to take that seriously. Like, more people need to realize what a good thing it is to participate in your society. Even at the lowest level, just give a little bit, and you're going to get so much back, because we'll all benefit. But I think we've become all so selfish and so small-minded, and that's what they want, right? The opposition, the Republicans, I'm going to name them by party, the Christian nationalists, the fascists, they want us to be fractured. They want us to be tribal. They want us to stick inside our little homes and not talk to anyone, and not organize, and not feel that we are stronger together. And I think that's what education is. Education is the key that gets people to realize the power they have as an individual when they come together. That's what they're trying to break in us right now, I think.
It's kind of the best motivator, right? Because kids are involved in this process. So, a city council seat is one thing, but when you're talking about being on a body that makes decisions about children in your community, that's damn impactful. And so if we don't focus on that in 2026, then we're going to further erode democracy, because democracy starts with education.
Absolutely.
And if we don't control education, because that's what the other side is definitely trying to do, we see every day something new drops, then, we will really miss the mark, because as the schools go, so will society go. Public schools are the foundation of this country. And now they need it.
That is a perfect place to
end the show. Yeah, thank you so much, Liz, for coming back on. The hour always flies by. Well,
yes, it does.
For some reason, but that's it for today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. We will be back on next Sunday with another episode of The Voice of Reason.
Some chaos that we'll talk about.
Hopefully, it's a slow week in the news. For crying out loud,
we can only hope.
Like, I don't want to wake up and find out that Donald Trump posted like 400 times in a matter of a couple hours. Like, I just want a normal day where our leader isn't a psychotic madman trying to destroy everything.
It's unbelievable.
It would be nice.
I mean, I've lived through like the Nixon era and, all of these crazy things that have happened. There's never been anything like this.
Nothing.
No.
This is insane.
Yeah,
so we love you all. Thank you guys all for your support. And like always, we will talk to you guys.